They get people, they get these radical Palestinian elements, these terrorists there. They gather them. Suddenly, rocks appear out of nowhere. It gives the Hamas, in this case, the Hamas, the geographical area where we're talking about, it gives the Hamas two advantages. First of all, it gives them the biggest advantage of playing victim, which is Hamas's biggest weapon, even bigger than the rockets that Hamas uses, which is not more than a stone's throw anyway. It's a very small piece of land. There also, Hamas is earning, by the latest counts, if I'm not mistaken, over $250 million a year. They're making through various things. In 2000, in 2009-10, they were earning 70, 80, 90 million dollars. So these people are making big money. It's a racket. They'll partner with Hezbollah, they'll fight against Iran, they'll get funding from all over the world, and the funding, 70, 80% of the funding they get is from abroad. Yeah, they don't even get it from the Palestinians, because Palestinians are anyway not making so much money, Weber. They get their funding from abroad, they get funding from various benefactors, whether it's Qatar or whether any other place. So they get their funding from there, and after getting their funding from there, this is what they do. It may be a Jewish state, it is, and it was formed on the basis of Judaism. But hats off to the Israelis. They give equal rights to everybody. People live peacefully inside Israel. The problem is that I buy land from you, for example, Weber, and this is exactly what happened. I buy land from you, and when I say give me my land, you say no, I'll not give it to you. We stand with the Jews. We stand solidly with the state of Israel, because we have faced similar kind of attacks on our soil from people of similar mindset. I'm talking about terrorism, and this is something that has to be condemned. My fight is for equality. My fight is just that, if you find the desecration of a mosque so horrific, please find the desecration of a temple equally horrific. That is my only argument. I have no other argument. Lekin this thing has been done. More than 400 temples in Pakistan have been destroyed. 400 temples. Did any one of these Indian celebrities tweet that this is wrong? 400 temples have been destroyed. No. If you tweet about the destruction of a temple, right, you become a right-winger. You become a communal person. And in India, ये बहुत बड़ा इल्जाम है यार. Nobody is willing to take this on their heads. Nobody. But if you say that I was very offended when Israeli police entered Al-Aqsa Mosque, then you're secular, and then you're treated, and then you are part of that jet set elite. Yeah. Every time the Hamas says that, or the Hezbollah says the civilians have been killed. Now, I want to tell you how civilians are killed. The Pakistani army follows the same terrorist model of the Hamas and the Hezbollah, because all the rockets, the launchers where the rockets are, they are placed in highly populated areas, and they fire the rockets from there into Israel. So when Israel hits back, it hits back near the rockets or on the rockets, which are placed in dense areas. And this is why civilian casualties occur. And these rockets are deliberately placed in highly populated civilian areas. You say that Al-Aqsa is the third holiest mosque in Islam. And how dare the Israelis enter the third holy mosque of Islam? I want to ask, how dare the Pakistani enter the most holy mosque of Islam, which is at just near Kaaba in Makkah? They've entered it. They've fired at the building. They have damaged the mosque. I accuse them not just of double standards. Celebrities, whether they're in sports or whether they're in films, I don't accuse them of just double standards and hypocrisy, Weber. I accuse them of being stupid. They won't know where Israel is on the map. Ask them, what was the 6-day war? What was the Yom Kippur war? Ask them, how did this entire, problem start? Ask them. Hi, this is Major Gaurav Arya, and you're watching Defensive Offense English. Like, subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon. All of us here in India extend our full support to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And I have only one message for you. We are with you. We are standing right behind you. Go and bomb the living daylights of the Hamas.
Jai friends, you are watching Defensive Offense, and I am Vaibhav. Today we are joined by Major Gaurav Arya to discuss the recent series of events that has happened in Israel. A recent conflict between the terrorists of Hamas, who are based in Palestine, and the Israeli Defense Forces. We'll discuss with Major Gaurav Arya what is happening and what could be the implications, and why the rest of the world must be scared of all these terrorists, whom a lot of people are supporting nowadays in the name of human rights. So, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Vaibhav, and thank you very much for inviting me.
So the first question is, what is happening in Israel? Why has it happened? And what could be the possible reasons why Israel has responded so strongly?
Uh, Vaibhav, the answer to your question lies in your question. You said that Hamas is a terrorist organization, which it is, and that is the reason why this is happening now. These are territories, the Palestinian territories on one side, this part of it, and then we also talk about the Gaza Strip, and then we talk about essentially two terrorist organizations: the Hezbollah, which is Iran supported, and Hamas, which is essentially a Sunni radical Islamist organization. Both these organizations have, sworn to, if I can say, push the Jews into the sea, which is their stated aim. Wherever this whole thing about violence happening, especially on Friday after Jummah Namaz, is not new. It has been happening for ever and ever, and it's been happening for a very long time, decades old. So every time somebody will give a call from inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this is not the first time, by the way, it's happening from this particular mosque as well. So what they do is they get people, they get these radical Palestinian elements, these terrorists there, they gather them. Suddenly, rocks appear out of nowhere. They start pushing. They start pushing the Israeli army, and the Israeli army is no pushover. The Israeli army reacts. Then people get hurt. It gives the Hamas, in this case, the Hamas, the geographical area where we're talking about, it gives the Hamas two advantages. First of all, it gives them the biggest advantage of playing victim, which is Hamas's biggest weapon, even bigger than the rockets that Hamas uses. Our human rights have been violated, and we are poor people, and Israel is sort of hammering us, and human rights violations, etc. This is one very basic factor. Second thing is it leads to a lot of terrorist recruitment. So whenever Hamas feels that its ranks are dilapidated, and when people are leaving our ranks, Hamas, does this. Hamas owns, by the way, these terrorist organization owns, there is an Al-Aqsa bank, and they own over 20 to 25% of this bank. They levy taxes. They formed a government in, I think, 2006 or 2008, if I remember the year correctly. And so these people are not just a political organization; they are a terrorist organization, and they're working exactly like the ISIS, the Islamic State. And I'll tell you why they're working like the Islamic State. It's not about beheadings. It's not about rocket attacks. It's about territory. No other terrorist organization, apart from the Islamic State and then Hamas and to some extent Hezbollah, has captured land. The Al Qaeda never captured land. The Jaish-e-Mohammed doesn't have land. Al-Shabaab does not have land in Africa. The Lashkar-e-Tayyiba does not have land. Territory from which they levy taxes, they make laws, they sort of, they implement those laws. So this is extremely dangerous, Weber. And what has happened is unfortunate, but I'm happy that Israel is giving them a beating of a lifetime. However, it's going to give the Palestinians and specifically the Hamas a stick with which to beat Israel, crying human rights, playing their very old and worn out victim card, which is finding lesser and lesser buyers because I think they're overplaying this victim card, Weber.
So we have seen Hamas, and there is a conspiracy theory. They say ki, or rather say they have an analysis that Hamas and Hezbollah cannot cooperate. Um, First of all, do you buy this argument just because Hamas is a Sunni organization and Hezbollah is a Shia organization, so that they cannot cooperate? Because Qatar is a majority Sunni country and they are cooperating with Iran. They were ready to take a fight with the fellow Arab brothers like from Saudi Arabia and UAE, Bahrain. So they were willing to fight them, but they said, no, we are not going to curtail our ties with Iran. So they were willing to, stand with Iran. First of all. Secondly, we all know the role of Qatar in funding the radical jihadi groups like ISIS. And that's the only reason why Saudi Arabia and other countries imposed, embargo on Qatar. So do you really think that, this whole argument that, just because they have a different, they follow two different streams of Islam, so they cannot cooperate because a terrorist organization is a terrorist organization. According to you, the terrorists don't have a religion. So where does this Shia Sunni divide come in? So,
Uh,
so just throw a light on that.
yes, Vaibhav, I agree with you 100%. This entire thing about, he Shia Sunni, this is only for the poor people, the poor Muslims who get very, inspired and, Shia hai, wajibul qatl hai, maar dalo, Sunni hai, maar. See, in the real world, these things don't matter here. Let me be very honest. I have known of, educated people, rich people, Shias and Sunnis marrying amongst each other. Yeah? They live amongst each other, they marry amongst each other. It only happens among the poor class, whom you can motivate, whom you can mold, whom you can use for your propaganda. And, even if they have the Shia Sunni barriers, let us say we're talking about specifically the Hezbollah and the Hamas, even if they have this difference of ideology, so what? Today they gather around, today they partner up to fight Israel, and the understanding could very well be that after we defeat Israel, so to say, then we'll sort each other out. ये तो होता ही है ना. This happens. This is what happened between America and the Soviet Union till the Second World War. Till Berlin fell, Hitler committed suicide. They were partners. America and Soviet Russia were partners. And immediately after the Second World War, the Cold War started. And 50s, 60s, 70s, even till the late 80s, the Cold War continued. And the remnants of the Cold War, the remnants, of course, it finished long back, but the remnants can still be seen. So, for anybody to think that the Shia Sunni is nonsense. It's to a very large extent, it is used to motivate the street because the street is uneducated, the street is uh, melodramatic, the street is emotional, the street can be molded. So you use the Shia card and the Sunni card whenever you feel like, but at the top level, people partner, people make money, and it's even for Hamas in that very small territory, which is not more than a stone's throw anyway. It's a very small piece of land. There also Hamas is earning, by the latest counts, if I'm not mistaken, over $250 million a year. They're making through various things. In 2000 in 2009-10, they were earning 70, 80, $90 million. So these people are making big money. It's a racket. They'll partner with Hezbollah, they'll fight against Iran, they'll get funding from all over the world, and the funding, 70, 80% of the funding they get is from abroad. Yeah, they don't even get it from the Palestinians because Palestinians are anyway not making so much money, Weber. They get their funding from abroad, they get funding from various benefactors, whether it's Qatar or whether any other place. So they get their funding from there, and after getting their funding from there, this is what they do. This is business for the Hamas. Another thing which I wanted to, and perhaps we could look, Vaibhav, in your future questions, the Kashmir equation with all this. This is something that interests me a lot. I tweeted about it recently. So I'd like you to also dwell on this Kashmir equation so we can explain to our viewers what this means here in the Israel-Palestine sense.
I'll come to the Kashmir question, sir, but I have one more question with regards to the current situation. It all started with the Israeli court's order to to give the rights, the land holding rights to the Jews, which the land which is being occupied, 2 kilometers away from the old city of East Jerusalem, and in the Sheikh Jarrah. That land was purchased by Jews. I'm not going into historical nuances where the whole of Jerusalem was owned by Jews. It was purchased by the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood was purchased by the Jews, as early as 20th century. So it's not very old. That they have bought that land and they own the rights. So Supreme Court of Israel ruled in their favor. Said, no, these guys have paid money and they own the rights. Now you are occupying land of other, religious community, and now including the the mosque where all these troubles have taken place. Even that site was historically owned by the Jews. So you build your religious places on others' spiritual lands. You go and occupy and start living on the land that is owned by somebody else. Then when those people say, "Okay, give my land back," you start stone pelting. And don't you think that this whole this whole conflict, the onus of it is lies on the Palestinian people, not the Jews or the Israelis or IDF?
See, this same thing, this is a template, Weber, when you have to understand, and I request our viewers to understand this template. This template was followed in Turkey also when Hagia Sophia, which was essentially, Hagia Sophia was a church, which was converted into a mosque. Then it was converted into a museum, and then again converted into a mosque. So if you see this entire template, the same template, even Al-Aqsa Mosque, it was never a mosque. So you enter somebody else's, place of worship, and you say that, from today this is a mosque. End of story. And once it's a mosque, it's a mosque. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, that is what is happening. It's happened in so many places across the world, and this is exactly what is happening there. The Jews bought that land, and the Supreme Court's judgment. You see, you have to understand that in the Middle East there is only one democracy, and that is Israel. One place which has free and fair elections, that is Israel. One place where even minorities have, 15-20% of Israel is Arabs, yeah, and they have equal voting rights. They're in the military, they're in the bureaucracy, they're in finance, they're everywhere, they're in sports, they're in films, they're everywhere. You see, so Israel gives equal rights. Their constitution enshrines equal rights for everybody. It's actually Israel, while the state religion may be Judaism, it may be a Jewish state, it is, and it was formed on the basis of Judaism. But hats off to the Israelis. They give equal rights to everybody. People live peacefully inside Israel. The problem is that I buy land from you, for example, Weber, and this is exactly what happened. I buy land from you, and when I say give me my land, you say no, I'll not give it to you. And if I demand my land, then I cry that I'm a poor man. How dare you do it? I'm scared. You are scaring me further. Go to the papers like Washington Post and New York Times and write long sob stories and get Indian film stars and Indian celebrities to tweet "Free Palestine." These people without an iota of IQ, no knowledge about how Israel was created, what were the UN resolutions, how this entire Gaza Strip, what happened to the Gaza Strip, what was the Yom Kippur War, what was the Six-Day War, who was Moshe Dayan, how did all these things happen? Suddenly, they think it's this huge romantic notion. The Intifada. We protest, we want to resist. Sitting inside your air-conditioned rooms, you want to resist, you want to protest. Israel is not impressed, first of all. You can keep on resisting and keep on protesting for 5,000 years. It will not make one drop of difference to the state of Israel and should not. That's number one. Number two, we stand with the Jews, we stand solidly with the state of Israel because we have faced similar kind of attacks on our soil from people of similar mindset. I'm talking about terrorism. And this is something that has to be condemned. Simply saying that, the Israeli police entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There were so many people in India. You see, Irfan Pathan, a respected cricketer, said, you must condemn what has happened. Now, if I ask Irfan Pathan two questions on social media, I'm going to be branded a Hindu right-winger, and so what? So what? How does it matter? But, they'll say that you're going against the Constitution of India and you're doing this. And, फिर वो ज्ञान भी देते हैं ना लोग कि as an ex-army officer, you should not be doing this and doing this. What? There is a report of the Pakistan human rights. Everybody says Babri Masjid was destroyed. Everybody remembers Babri Masjid. Babri Masjid was destroyed on the 6th of December. 6th of December in 1992. I remember I was in Bhopal at that time. We used to live in Bhopal at that time. I had come home from holidays and it was, my father was in the police. He was still serving at that time. He was DGP, in fact, of Madhya Pradesh at that time when in faraway Ayodhya, this thing happened. And on 8th of December, 48 hours later, a mob in Pakistan went on the rampage and destroyed 30 temples in one day. 30 temples in one single day. Vaibhav. Does anybody even know that 30 temples were destroyed? And this is a report of the Pakistani Human Rights Watch. This is a Pakistani report, not my report, not your report, not an Indian report. 30 temples were destroyed. My fight here is not to say that my religion is superior to your religion. My fight is not that I am better than you or my holy book is better than yours. That is not my fight at all, because it is not. My fight is for equality. My fight is just that, if you find the desecration of a mosque so horrific, please find the desecration of a temple equally horrific. That is my only argument. I have no other argument. But this thing has been done. More than 400 temples in Pakistan have been destroyed. 400 temples. Did any one of these Indian celebrities tweet that this is wrong? 400 temples have been destroyed? No. Because if you tweet about the destruction of a temple, right, you become a right-winger. You become a communal person. And in India, ये बहुत बड़ा इल्जाम है यार. Nobody is willing to take this on their heads. Nobody. But If you say that I was very offended when Israeli police entered Al-Aqsa Mosque, then you're secular and then you're fated and then you're, you are part of that jet set elite, yeah, who can talk about all these things. But sure, talk about Israeli police entering Al-Aqsa Mosque, I'll support you. But also talk about 1,000 Sikh girls and Hindu girls who were forcibly raped, converted, and married off in Pakistan. Yeah, tweet about that also. Na kabhi kabhi to हमारे लिए भी आवाज उठाओ. This, I sometimes I feel very sad and despondent, Vaibhav, that you know, uh, you can kill 1,000 Hindus. Yeah, it won't matter to anybody, Vaibhav. किसी को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. No, nobody cares. We have to do this ourselves. And again I'm saying, our fight even today is not to say that you know that we should be the only ones and there should be nobody. Everybody should be equal. यार हिंदू मुस्लिम सिख ईसाई सब भाई भाई हैं, सब एक साथ रहें. लेकिन अगर मेरे कोई मंदिर में आता है तुम भी तो आवाज उठाओ यार. You also raise your voice. That I think, Vaibhav, it will not be wrong to say that we are the true liberals, we are the true seculars, because we talk about equality. Secularism is about equality, right? We talk about equality. Unfortunately, secularism has come to mean that you don't talk about equality. You talk about only one side of the story, which is very unfortunate. We should talk about balance. We should talk about equality among all religions.
So people who are so sad that and they are so mad and angry, and they are so hurt that how could police enter Al-Aqsa Mosque. None of them are talking about the bigger question. What was the stone? There was a stockpile of stones inside a mosque. What was? I mean, how can you allow? You say that it is the third holy site in Islam, and you use that site to hide weapons, rockets, and stones, and God knows what. I mean, you should be offended for that. How can Hamas or any other group use our mosque to hide these weapons that were used to hurt people of other religious faith? So this is the first question. And secondly, when we see that there is one parallel that we see, and the the modus operandi is same, whether it is Kashmir or it is Palestine. That you always use your mosque to galvanize mobs. You use all these mosques to issue sermons against a particular religious group. In India, it is against the Hindus. In Palestine, it is against the Jews. I mean, all these people, they don't get offended by all these, wild things that all these Maulvis and mullahs and all these, terrorist organizations do while they use your religious premises. You should be offended over that. You should not be offended over, if law enforcement agencies, enter mosque.
No,
And you
absolutely,
attack
Vaibhav.
them also. And you attack them also
Yes.
when they enter.
Yes. No, they attack them even if they don't enter. ऐसी बात नहीं. In Palestine, you see an Israeli soldier and this thing, day before yesterday, Vaibhav, an Indian citizen died, a Keralite lady. She was from Kerala, Malayali lady. She was killed in a rocket attack. Yeah. Not many of us know that an Indian citizen died because the Palestinians they fired a rocket, yeah, and it landed in the house where she was. She was working there. She was an employee, and she was killed. Anyway, coming back to this whole Kashmir and Palestine thing, this whole Intifada thing, no, this whole Intifada thing, and I'd request if you can show some images and all that. On one side Palestine and one side Kashmir, you'll find this entire construct in Kashmir, the stone pelting, this Band, Hartal, all that drama, which Hurriyat did. They just copied what these people were doing in Palestine. They just copied it, Vaibhav. ये stone pelting कहाँ से आई कश्मीर में? Where did the Kashmiri stone pelters learn how to stone pelt? This was not there during our time. We never knew what stone pelting was. We used to read about stone pelting because during our time there was no mobile phone and all that, and even television was not like everywhere. We didn't have a television set in my unit. Yeah, at that time we had an old one which never worked, but and we were mostly in field areas. So bunker में क्या television क्या? We didn't have anything. It was there in battalion headquarters. But I don't understand this entire stone pelting thing, this entire calling of a radicalized crowd through the mosque, especially after Friday prayers. A namaz happens 5 times a day, 7 days a week, right? 7 days a week, 5 times a day namaz happens. Can somebody please explain to me why stone pelting happens after the Friday namaz? Just what we call Jummah ki namaz. Why does it happen only then? Mostly 99%. Why is the call to stone pelting given from the mosque? Why do people come out of the mosque and start stone pelting? Right? Why are women? Please show images of women. Same modus operandi, putting women and children in front. Why do they put women and children? ये औरतों के पीछे लड़ाई लड़ते हैं, क्यों लड़ते हैं बच्चों के पीछे? सामने आओ ना, सामने आओ. ये मर्द बनने की गलतफहमी हम भी तो दूर करें एक बार. But these people, they do that. They put children in front. Why? So you have child martyrs. You see the images, Vaibhav. See the images. Palestinian child martyrs, Kashmiri child martyrs. Because this shocks you. This shocks the sensibilities of anyone. A woman with a face full of pellet wounds. This shocks. They deliberately. These people are not humans. They are जैसे कुर्बानी के बकरे होते हैं ना. They're like कुर्बानी के. They're put in front, get hurt, get injured, so we get maximum mileage, and we get to play the victim card. This is what this is about. And this is they have just transplanted right from the keffiyah, the checkered stuff. If you see a lot of people, stone pelters in Kashmir, the checkered stuff. So that checkered stuff, the keffiyah, it's taken from there. It's an Arab thing. It's not Kashmiri at all. And while you may wear whatever you want, that's not my concern. The fact of the matter is, stone pelting has come from there. This entire thing about Friday, come, let's gather, throw stones, tear gas. This entire thing has been imported from Palestine into Kashmir. This entire model, this Intifada model, has been imported from Palestine, and this is what people are doing in Kashmir. Abhi to, after 300, Article 370 and 35 has been removed, so वहाँ पे हवा निकल गई सबकी. The Hurriyat has disappeared, and now Kashmir is limping back to normalcy. It will take time, a few years, but it will come back to normal. But the fact of the matter is, that is what people have tried. People have tried this time and again. And last thing, Vaibhav, I also want to tell our viewers, every time the Hamas says that, or the Hezbollah says the civilians have been killed. Now, I want to tell you how civilians are killed. The Pakistani army follows the same terrorist model of the Hamas and the Hezbollah. Because all the rockets, the launchers where the rockets are, they are placed in highly populated areas. And they fire the rockets from there into Israel. So when Israel hits back, it hits back near the rockets or on the rockets, which are placed in dense areas. And this is why civilian casualties occur. And these rockets are deliberately placed in highly populated civilian areas. कि कोई बच्चा मर जाए, कोई औरत मर जाए, कोई बुजुर्ग मर जाए, तो फिर हमें, एक victim card play, and that victim card we can play very effectively in front of the global media, global audience. This is exactly what the Pakistani army does in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That those people call Azad Kashmir, right? And we call POK. That is what they do. They put their medium guns, their mortars, right in the middle of villages. We don't do that. We don't do that. We put them in isolated places because there is something called CV, na? There is something called counter bombardment. When you bombard, the enemy will read the flight path and they will counter bombard the same flight path. It will come back to you. So what you do is you move your mortars from there, so your weapon remains unharmed, or there is no damage, undamaged, and you move it. But when the Indian bomb falls, it falls where the people are, and then you can say, oh, ye dekho, ye buzurg mar gaya, ye aurat mar gayi, bachcha mar gaya. And then you start playing victim. Pakistani army does exactly what the Palestinians are doing. And this whole Kashmir thing in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or even in Indian Kashmir, in downtown Srinagar, it is the same frame. There is no difference. The same frame, what is happening in Palestine, they're trying to do here also.
So all these Indian celebrities whose hearts are aching for, Palestinians, none of them, ever condemned Hamas. For the Indian lady about Soumya Santosh, she was just 30 years old. She has a young kid. She has left behind her husband. I mean, you don't have a single word of, condemnation for Hamas, for killing one of your fellow citizens. You're supporting them. And you can't see Soumya Santosh or, all these people. I was so amazed to see that, millions of them in India of one particular religious community, coming out in support of Palestinians and Hamas. None of them shed a single tear for more than 700,000 Kashmiri Hindus who can't live there in their own homeland. They are refugees in their own country. They were ethnically cleansed. Something that they are accusing Israel of. It was done by fellow Muslims in Kashmir, and you did not shed a single tear. And today you are accusing Israel for doing the same thing. I mean, how bizarre these guys can be.
It is not just bizarre. I'll tell you the hypocrisy. It all starts with Pakistan. And I think Pakistan is such a lovely country because I think hypocrisy grows on trees in Pakistan. जैसे हिंदुस्तान में आम सेब उगते हैं, वहाँ पे hypocrisy grows on trees. Uh, in 1979, there was something called the Black September. Ziaul Haq, we have covered this in defensive offense before, and I'll tell you because there are so many Pakistanis saying, Israelis have killed Palestinians. I want to ask Pakistanis, what did General Ziaul Haq, at that time brigadier or major general or whatever he was posted there. What was Black September? According to certain estimates, more than 25,000 Palestinians were killed by the Pakistani army under Ziaul Haq, who was, I think, a major general or something like that there. At that point in time, he was posted there. Right? And today,
Brigadier.
those Pakistanis, brigadier, I beg your pardon, brigadier, and the Pakistani Brigade Plus, which was there, they just massacred the Palestinians day in and day out because they were getting money from Jordan. इनको इन्होंने पैसा लिया और उन्होंने Palestinians को मार डाला. It's called Black September. Go on the internet and check it out. But today, Pakistanis are playing victim on media. They're anchors, they're TV anchors, speaking in highly Punjabiized Urdu. They keep on saying कि जी बड़ा गलत कर रहा है इजराइल और जारियाना हरकत है ये सब. अरे, just go back to your own history. Pakistanis were responsible for launching a commando operation inside the mosque in Mecca. Kaaba ke bagal mein jo masjid hai, which is the holiest mosque in Islam. It was Pakistani special forces who entered. They fired at the mosque. Please check your history, what you have done. They say that non-Muslims cannot come. The French came, the French intelligence, French special forces, they came, and Arab intelligence and Arab special forces. Together, these three countries, they launched an operation and they hit the mosque in Mecca. They hit the mosque in Mecca because they felt that, powers that are inimical to Saudi interests were inside and they had weapons inside. These people, and today they are playing victim. And the Pakistanis who are saying that, how dare you enter Al-Aqsa Mosque? यही पूछ रहे हैं ना Pakistanis कि आप घुसे कैसे? I want to ask the Pakistanis, how dare the Pakistani army enter the mosque at Mecca? You say that Al-Aqsa is the third holiest mosque in Islam. And how dare the Israelis enter the third holy mosque of Islam? I want to ask, how dare the Pakistani enter the most holy mosque of Islam, which is at just near Kaaba in Makkah? They've entered it. They've fired at the building. They have damaged the mosque. Because when they are paid money, when Pakistanis are paid money, they'll wag their tails. When they're not paid money, then they'll become human rights people. So this is what is happening. And as far as web of Indian celebrities are concerned, I know a few people from Bollywood, but thankfully the people that I know from Bollywood and I am friends with, friends ke mere senior hain bahut, they're highly intelligent people. They're very intelligent people, and you can talk to them on an array of subjects, and they can hold forth on poetry, on current affairs, on geopolitics, on politics, on sports, on medicine. They know so much. But that is only 1 or 2% of Bollywood. 98% whom I've met, I've been very, very disappointed. Vaibhav, I can tell you in my personal capacity, I can condone many faults in a human being, and I can ignore many faults. But something that really upsets me is stupidity. I accuse them not just of double standards. Celebrities, whether they're in sports or whether they're in films, I don't accuse them of just double standards and hypocrisy, Vaibhav. I accuse them of being stupid. They won't know where Israel is on the map. Ask them, what was the 6-day war? What was the Yom Kippur war? Ask them, how did this entire, problem start? Ask them. Pakistanis say that we do not recognize the existence of Israel. And yet, the same Pakistanis say that you must solve the Kashmir dispute according to the UN resolutions. Arey Baba, Israel was made according to a UN resolution only. On one hand, you don't want to respect the UN resolutions. On the other hand, you want to respect the UN resolutions. So it is not just hypocrisy. It is also stupidity, Weber. And I can for a minute understand hypocrisy, because human beings will be hypocrites. But stupidity I cannot forgive or condone. And these people are stupid. IQ nahi hai in logon ki. They don't have any. They just think it's very. Kya bolte hain aajkal youngsters? It's very hep. to support. We resist. We want to resist. The same faces you'll see in Shaheen Bagh, the same faces making an absolute fool of themselves on Twitter. ये मेरे सामने आए मैं इनसे पूछता हूँ चार सवाल. I want to ask all these people. I will not take names here. I just want to ask them, what do you know about the Israel-Palestine conflict? Sit down with me. Let's have a 1 hour discussion live on television. Let's see how much you know. They don't know, Vaibhav. I accuse them of having an IQ of a plant. That is what I cannot digest.
So I guess plants must be having higher IQ than all these people, and they are much
Must
more
be.
useful for us because they give us shade, they give us oxygen, and all
Yes.
these buggers they are worth giving nothing except unnecessary done on Twitter and creating unrest in their own country and trying to meddle
Yeah.
with countries like Israel. So my last and final question is that a person who's living in Chunapatti or Bhopal and a person who's living old walled city Lahore, all
Hmm.
these guys never got out of their own respective cities. All right, they don't know what is happening beyond their own districts, beyond their own neighborhood. But they shout death to the Jews every Friday. And they say, oh, Jews are, very, evil people, they are killing Palestinians, they are not anti-national or something, they are anti-human, okay? They don't deserve to live this, Hitler was right, all these statements, and, the Hitler said that, I'm leaving some Jews alive so that, world could know why I killed them, such wild statements are given by all these people. And they don't know nothing. They don't even know what is happening in their own neighborhood. So, from where does this hatred come? This is part one of the question. And the second part, all these people, especially in the Western countries, who are supporting these Palestinians and the terrorists of Hamas, and they're accusing Israel of human rights violation when they should be accusing Hamas for that because they are the ones who are firing the rockets from hospitals, schools, colleges, and all these places. Old age home. I mean, how can somebody fire a rocket from an old age home? Can somebody explain? I mean, what is a bigger human rights violation than that? And all these people, they just ignore facts, as you rightly said. They're stupid people. They're idiots. They can't see something that is there right in front of them. So the second part of the question: how soon do you think all these people will, get the taste of their own medicine when the same modus operandi will be, used to be, implemented in, Western countries because their numbers are growing. Their numbers are growing in Europe. Their numbers are growing in North America. But when this happens in their own respective countries, what will be their response?
Vaibhav, I'll tell you, in before 9/11, the Americans always said that you know uh, the entire Kashmir thing is a law and order issue, and India should sort it out. And it's not terrorism. They never called it terrorism. It's only when 3,000 people, very unfortunately, died in 9/11 that the Americans woke up to the fact that no, there's not a law and order issue. There is something called terrorism. Before that, America was not. Even after they had so many things. Their embassies were bombed, etc. America was always very very slow to understand this concept of terrorism. Now, the thing is that you see this is essentially originally a Chinese model. The Chinese model is that uh, you can call it the Indian variant, Vaibhav, the COVID, the Indian variant, the South African variant, the UK variant, the American variant, or the German variant, or any other variant, right? But if you call it the Chinese virus, there are people within China and Chinese within the United States who'll start crying victim. But how can you call it? This is racism. And racism is something that the Americans are very, very afraid of because such is their culture. There has been race problems in America. There still are. And any self-respecting American to be called racist, he'll take 5 steps back and, white guilt comes into play. And then they start apologizing. All you have to do is call a white man a racist in Europe and in America, Canada, Australia. Call him a racist and he'll take 5 steps back and he'll start apologizing because you don't want to be called a racist. Similarly, what you do in a country like India, all right? take a pada likha guy, and if he's talking sense, right, just say, you're a communal guy. He'll take 5 steps back. ये हथियार है वैभव. We must understand. In India, you tell anybody, and all, what have I said today? I said that all religions must be respected equally. All places of worship should be given equal respect. And this is what the Constitution of India says. That is what secularism is about. But I have said it. Now, the easiest thing is कि ये तो communal है. बस ये संघी है, ये भक्त है. That is what they do. Use your systems against you. This famous journalist once said, use your systems against you. This is what is happening. And as far as Europe is concerned, there are, I don't understand this entire concept of people coming to Europe. You're welcome. I have relatives in Europe. I have relatives in the US, and that's all right. You go to some other country. I'm talking about the radical Islamists here, not the normal Muslim. I'm talking about the radical Islamists. Okay? You are economic refugees, political refugees, or refugees from war-torn countries. You left your own country because you thought your country was not good enough, so you went to the United States of America, you went to UK. You settled down, you had a good life, you raised your children in the American way, or the European way, or the English way, but suddenly you said, no, I want to now turn America into the country of my origin. So if I'm from Somalia, or if I'm from Pakistan, America should become Pakistan. This, defies all logic. Right? You left Pakistan because you thought it was a terrible place. Or you left Somalia because you thought it was a terrible place. But no, today you want America to become Somalia. And there are so many people who are doing this. And this has given rise in the recent decades to extremist right-wing Christian parties in Europe who don't have much of an electoral say, but they will every time they're gaining ground. And it's a matter of only 25, 30 years where you'll see clear demarcations in Europe. And it's going to be very unfortunate if this happens. But it's headed that way because we must understand that, people must speak up against all sorts of racism. Yeah? You can't be picky and choosy about racism. Yeah? You have to condemn everything unequivocally and equally. मुंह पे बोलना पड़ेगा. अगर मस्जिद का तोड़ना गलत है तो मंदिर का भी तोड़ना गलत है, गुरुद्वारे का भी तोड़ना गलत है, गिरजाघर का भी तोड़ना गलत है, सब गलत है. अगर किसी और भगवान के ऊपर बोलना गलत है तो इसके उसके उनके सबके भगवानों के बारे में गलत बोलना गलत है. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It can't be a one-way street because today the world is waking up and saying that यार अब नहीं चलता ये. People are taking a step back, and again I'm saying one thing. हमारी लड़ाई किस चीज की है? The fight is for equality. It's not for supremacy. I don't say that I'm superior to a person following any other religion. I'm not. I don't want to be. Forget whether I'm not or I am. I don't want to be superior to you, yeah? I don't want to be superior. I'm not saying that if you die, you'll go to hell. And if I die, I'm going to heaven. For me, Gaurav Arya is anyway going to hell. हमारी तो करतूतें ऐसी हैं कि हम नर्क ही जाएंगे सीधा अगर नर्क है तो. But we are not giving a certificate to anybody. We're saying, live in peace. This entire thing about hatred for Jews, I don't understand. Pakistan saying that we will not recognize. Fraud देखिए पाकिस्तानियों का वैभव. Pakistan says that we will not recognize, right? We will not recognize Israel. Pakistan does not have a land dispute with Israel. Pakistan has not fought any wars with Israel. Okay? Pakistan does not have any problems, so to say, with Israel. But Pakistan will not recognize Israel. Why? Heaven knows, yeah. Heaven knows. क्योंकि फिलिस्तीनी हमारे भाई हैं. Yet, that same Pakistan will recognize India, with which it has fought 4 wars. We have a solid terrorism problem in Kashmir. They started terrorism here in Punjab, this Khalistani terrorism movement. 26/11, hundreds of terrorist acts. We have a border dispute with Pakistan, and yet Pakistan has an embassy here. Now, I don't want to tell you why this hatred of Jews. You said, where does it come from? It's for anybody to guess. Where does this hatred come from? Among that person in Bhopal or the person in Androon Lahore? ये नफरत कहाँ से आती है? तुम्हें तो ये नहीं पता इजराइल है कहाँ पे? And I want to ask people in Pakistan, you have this masla Kashmir with India. आपने हिंदुस्तान के साथ जंगें भी लड़ी, सब कुछ करा, लेकिन चाणक्यपुरी में आपका एम्बेसी है, आपका हाई कमीशन है, हमारा आपके पास हाई कमीशन है. ट्रेड भी चल रही है भाई, फार्मास्यूटिकल्स में तो चल रही है. But you will not recognize Israel. Not that Israel is dying for Pakistan. Pakistan is nothing to give Israel. It is all the drama that Pakistani TV anchors do on this thing now, that we are being pressured to recognize, as if their recognition will mean something to them. What can you give? What can you give? That Israel is dying, that you will recognize. What will you do? You'll do trade with them. What will you do? You'll do nothing. Nobody cares about Pakistan. But at the same time, the Pakistani street, right? Or even in Arab countries, the Islamic street. Why this hatred against the Jew? I can understand. Okay, Palestinians say that. Okay, for example, the Jews have taken our land. Okay, Jews have taken your land. Right or wrong, we understand. At least you have a context in which you're fighting. You're fighting for something, right? We can understand. Which means that it's a political struggle. If you want to call it a struggle, it's a political struggle. But why is it a religious matter for Qatar? Or for the Organization of Islamic Cooperation countries, all 56, 57, 58 of them? Why is it such a big issue for Pakistan? Think about this and then tell me, where does all this hatred come from? I don't know where it comes from.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And we extend our support to Israeli Defense Forces, and we say that bomb the shit out of all these terrorists.
Absolutely. Absolutely.